Welcome to Understanding Bioarchaeology. Today we're going to be discussing the mysteries surrounding the rich Athenian woman. In June of 1967, a 35-year hiatus of excavation of the Areopagus in Athens, Greece was lifted. The Areopagus, as depicted here, is a burial site for many wealthy burials from the Mycenaean period to well into the geometric era. The so-called rich Athenian woman was found on grid plot H16-6 in the southwest corner of the agora immediately upon the continuation of excavation. Gerald V. Leloinde supervised the excavation, but the rich Athenian lady was dubbed and published by Evelyn Lord Smithson in 1968. Here is an image of the Keramikos burial grounds, which holds a higher portion of the population from the same time period as plot H16-6. Graves from the Keramikos were used to compare to the wealthier graves in the Areopagus in an attempt to develop a cultural understanding of the early Iron Age Athenians. The two containers depicted are amphoras, which contained the cremated remains found in H16-6. The designs covering the outside of the containers were considered early proto-geometric, thus allowing for bioarchaeologists to be able to estimate the origin of this woman to be from the early Iron Age of Athens. An important comment from Smithson was that the cremated remains were placed in the neck-handled amphora, which was unusual for the burial of a woman. Up until this point of observation, neck-handled amphora were used for male burials only. There were decorative cups placed on the lids of the amphora, which will be an important point of conversation later on. The amphoras held much more than the cremated remains of this woman. There were multiple pieces of jewelry that were surprisingly undamaged by fire. This meant that they were taken off during the funerary fire and afterwards placed in the amphoras with the remains. Much of the jewelry was expensive and rare in Athens at the time, elaborating that this woman was wealthy enough to obtain them and be buried with them. The woman depicted is modeling the jewelry found in the amphoras belonging to the rich Athenian lady. There were also multiple bones from animals such as goats and cows discovered in the ashes. Many of the animal bones were fragmented and discarded into a bag labeled as debris. Upon later inspection, there were enough bones to distinguish that over 70 kilograms of meat would have been cooked from these animals. This can be used to assess the elaborate funerary feast held in honor of this woman. A massive plot twist in the contents of the amphoras was the discovery of fetal bones. The tiny bones were originally mixed with the fragmented animal bones. Smithson had commented that the cups placed on tops of the amphoras could have indicated the presence of a fetus. In the Keramikos, infants were often buried in small cooking pots topped with cups. This is often because children below the age of 3 were not recognized with any cultural significance, as there was such a high mortality rate. Yet, the so-called debris was not sifted through, and so the fetal bones went unfound. Multiple archaeologists studied the rich Athenian woman, but it wasn't until Maria Liston and John Papadopoulos combed through the debris pile did they find the fetal bones. Liston explains that Smithson had been correct to correlate the cup-topped amphora with the presence of a fetus. A lot of information can be drawn from bones, even when there's very little material to work with. Bioarchaeologists can estimate sex, age, ancestry, stature, potential causes of death, and whether or not a person participated in hard labor work during their lifetime. In this case, much of the skeletal material was cremated, but there was still enough bone left to estimate the traits previously listed. It is important to note that many of the bones were warped from the cremation process and that could affect the data presented. The image of a skeleton is shaded gray with the bones that were found in the amphora. The remains were estimated to be female because of the very delicate and gracile features of the facial bones. The face almost appeared childlike, except the wisdom teeth had fully grown in. The discovery of fetal bones essentially confirmed the estimation of female. Depicted is a facial reconstruction of the rich Athenian woman drawn by Graham Houston. The age was estimated from the evaluation of available pieces from the pelvis and parts of the ribcage. The woman was believed between 24 and 40 years old based on these evaluations, with a median ranging in about the 30s. Using a non-metric measurement system, ancestry was evaluated using the facial bones present. Their remains were most similar to Caucasian ancestry. Using 3 of the damaged bones from the hand and a complicated reverse linear regression, stature was estimated to be about 155.9 centimeters, or that's about 5 foot 1 inch. The fetal bones were also evaluated. Unfortunately, bioarchaeological methods cannot yet assess children who have not undergone puberty for estimated sex. However, in evaluating the fetal femur present, The fetus was precisely estimated to be between 34 and 36 weeks old. Looking at the bones can tell a bioarchaeologist a lot of information, but it can't tell the full story. When looking at the skeletal remains of this woman, she appeared to be in perfect health. There were no signs of any long-term illnesses or diseases, nor any skeletal damage that would have caused her death. Here are two examples of diseases that can affect the skeletal system over time: syphilis and leprosy. There are plenty of ways this woman could have died, such as premature labor or a sudden illness that killed her before it could have any impact on the skeleton. Premature death was ruled out because of experimental cremation of fetal bone burn patterns, suggesting that the fetus was most likely still in utero during the funerary cremation process. Had the child been newly born, the small bones would have most likely not survived the high temperatures. This leaves plenty of other means with which this woman could have died. Bones can be evaluated to show how much heavy labor a person experiences throughout their lifetime, as the muscles pull on the bones and cause the bones to adapt to the repetitive movements. These are called skeletal muscular stress markers. When evaluating the rich Athenian woman, there was very little presence of any of these markers. There was also a lack of joint degradation, which is to be expected to a certain degree in a 30-year-old woman of this time period. This data could be interpreted that this woman did not have to do very many hard labor tasks, which could be explained because she was considered an aristocratic woman. This only further backs up the theory that this woman was very, very wealthy. Many of the bioarchaeologists who have studied this case have assumed that this woman was either the daughter of a Pentecosiomedemonoi, the highest property class in Athens, or an archon's wife. Susan Langdon brought up a few Scandinavian studies that focus on the evidence for female independence and the potential ability for women to own property in Athens. This was unheard of in the rest of Greece, but if this woman was capable of owning property, then it may explain why she was buried in what was traditionally considered a male amphora. Simon Hilson also brings up that this woman was in her 30s and the fetus was most likely her first child. This is based on the lack of pelvic stress markers indicative of a previous childbirth. This could potentially lead to the understanding that this woman was worth more than just her childbearing capabilities within the society. Thank you for joining me today in understanding bioarchaeology. I hope that you were able to learn more about the rich Athenian lady and what she may mean for understanding women in Athenian culture. If you would like to learn more about this topic, please feel free to look into the sources being listed. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.